Hey guys, I wanted to kind of do a little bit more videos about communism, socialism, um, just the Marxist theories of how does Marx see capitalism, right? So, what are some of the basic stuff about what he's saying? Because, you know, a lot of people don't really know, including most Marxists and communists and socialists themselves. Including Christian socialists, they don't really understand, much less even know what he says, right? So let's start with some of the basic stuff because I'm not an expert, by the way. Um, so I don't, claim to be an expert on communism or anything like that. But I will try to kind of break it down little by little, so that way you guys can understand and get a grasp of, you know, what Marx and Engels, Friedrich Engels, what did they think, right? Um, so like what are some of the things that they were trying to accomplish, and you know how exactly did they go about them? But first we have to understand some of the basic concepts. Okay, so we know that obviously Marx was very critical. He was heavily critical of capitalism, even though most Marxists don't know this. In fact, most people don't know this. Marx did not think of capitalism as evil, right? He never wanted to smash capitalism. He didn't want to destroy it. He didn't think it was, the work of the devil or anything like that. If anything, Marx thought capitalism was mostly good. Um, and so a lot of people are shocked to hear that. Like, really? The guy that was super critical of the capitalist economic system, he thought it was mostly good? So why would he write over I think it's like 5,000 pages, you know, criticizing and talking about like capitalism and different economic theories, and he believes, especially if you've ever read the Communist Manifesto, he talks about how we're not embarrassed, we want to, it's going to sound like a contradiction, right? He The goal of the communists is to overthrow the capitalist system, but he didn't necessarily think that we should do anything proactive about it per se. He said he wanted to help it to eventually be destroyed. So, in other words, Marx thought that capitalism was already going to be destroyed. And who's going to destroy it? Capitalism itself, right? So he said that in his own mind, um, since capitalists are primarily concerned with profit over equality and productivity, that therefore eventually it will wind down. And there's this term that he uses, it's called surplus, right? So what does that mean? What does surplus mean? Okay, surplus means, let's just say, for example, you have a product that you want to sell, right? And let's just say that that product, everybody else is selling it for $1, but you're selling it for $1.50. And so what you're doing is, let's just say you buy it for 75 cents and you sell it for $1.50. So how much surplus will you get? Well, the surplus value that you're going to get is 75 cents. So you bought that product for 75 cents and you're selling it on the market for $1.50. So you make an extra 75 cents. That's called a profit, right? And it's also called a surplus. So that's the extra money that you get from selling your product. The other people are selling it for $1 though. So they're buying it for 75 cents, but they're selling it for $1. So they're only making a 25-cent profit or surplus. And so what he's saying is, eventually capitalists figure out a way to increase the profit, right? And usually that happens by exploiting the workers, right? So the workers will be getting paid less and less money, and they are going to be working more and more hours, right? And the workers don't have any sort of, so what he's saying is, we call it the free market, but it's not really free, you are literally selling your labor to the company, right? And you're only getting paid a fraction of what you really deserve. Now, how much do you deserve? Marx never mentions that. So he says that it's unjust, but he never says what we should do about it exactly. He only calls for the overthrow of capitalism, but he says that eventually it will destroy itself because all the mechanisms of destruction are inherently built into capitalism. And I find that very interesting. But anyways, he says that basically this form of surplus that capitalists are making, it's going to increase more and more. And so today, let's just say that you're the capitalist, right? And then you're making 75-cent profit today. You're going to eventually figure out a way to make $1 profit, $2, $3, $5, $10, $20, and so on and so forth, and multiply that by the amount of products that you sell. So if you make a $5 surplus now instead of 75, and you multiply that by 100, you get a $500 surplus, which is a lot of money, right? And obviously when you multiply by even more and more products, by 1 million products, by 1 billion products, and so you continue to amass all this wealth. And all this wealth that you have now, you can use it to exploit others because others need you to give them a job. And so what he says is eventually what those people are going to do is they're going to use that economic leverage that they have in order to enslave others. And so the only thing that's going to be left is, so the workers are basically selling their labor just to survive. So that's, if I can be quite honest, that's his main criticism of capitalism, is that he says that basically capitalism and capitalists by extension are going to only give you enough to survive. But even then, it's not going to be enough because you have to put in more labor and still get nothing, because at the end of the day, the capitalists are still raking in all of the economic benefits and you get nothing. You get scraps. And if you refuse to sell your labor, then capitalists make it seem like, well, you're making that choice. But in reality, there's no choice involved, right? Because you need a job in order to survive. And that's the only thing that capitalism ensures. Based on his view, obviously, it ensures that you only make enough money to survive, not to thrive. But he says that people, when they participate in the labor market, they need to not only be able to survive, which is essential, right? I think we can all agree that we need to survive, but we also need to be able to thrive, right? So the products that we make, right? So in other words, when you go and when you build somebody else's company, you should gain some benefit from that, more than just merely surviving, paying the bills, and then being broke, doing that job, paying it all for bills, and so on and so forth. And you should be able to have enough money for you to start your own venture and be able to become a capitalist yourself. But of course, he doesn't realize that capitalism does do that. It incentivizes entrepreneurship. If you work hard, the market determines your value. But Marx did not understand that very well. And he thought that capitalism is solely based on exploitation. It's not that, though. Capitalism is not solely based on exploitation. Exploitation happens as a result of corruption. And corruption is a choice. But I'm not claiming that capitalism is this perfect economic system, but it is, historically speaking, the best one that we've had so far. And under capitalist societies, people have become more equal. And in fact, you can even make this argument that capitalism is the reason why right now there's more, there's racial equality, there's gender equality. Under communism and under socialism, that wouldn't be the case. In fact, women's rights and minority rights would regress instead of progress. So, but anyways, I just kind of wanted to give you guys some simple nuggets about Marxism and communism and socialism. I'm going to continue to do more videos on this because I feel like a lot of people don't even understand. Like I said, even most people who are, smash the capitalist system and, death to capitalism, blah, 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 they don't even know why they believe what they believe. They just know that they believe it because they know a few catchy phrases, but they don't know what the heck they're talking about at the end of the day. So I want to educate both people who subscribe to communism and the ones who don't subscribe to it in order for them to understand and hopefully for us to learn from Marx, but not necessarily adopt his ideology wholesale because it's not a good ideology. At the end of the day, it leads to mass starvation, death, and ironically enough, it leads to mass inequality. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.